Hey everyone, my name is Megan Radashti, and I'm one of the AOCPMR's Multimedia Committee co-chairs and your host for today's episode. Today's episode will be a fun one as we'll talk about all things exercise and training in the world of PM&R with two amazing guests. Our first guest is Dr. Alexa Moreira, who is a graduating PM&R PGY4 at University of Miami Jackson Health, who has grown up playing sports and just this past year competed at NPC Naturals Women's Physique Open Champion Bodybuilding competition. Whew, that was a mouthful. Dr. Moreira will continue her education at Rush University Medical Center, where she will be completing a pain medicine fellowship. Our second guest is Dr. Felicia Mix, who is set to finish her PM&R PGY2, also at University of Miami Jackson Health, who just as well shares an active background including CrossFit, swimming, running, and biking. She holds a level 1 CrossFit certification and currently is working on completing her adaptive and inclusive trainer certification. She hopes to work as a general physiatrist in a lifestyle medicine MSK practice, helping her patients reach their full physical potential. Welcome, Dr. Moreira and Dr. Fix. So I know I touched briefly on your backgrounds, but can you share a bit about yourself and what got you interested in CrossFit and or bodybuilding?
Yeah, thank you so much for having us on this podcast. We're really excited to be here and educate and inspire and motivate people to get active and really preach, you know, exercise what we preach essentially. Um I originally got introduced to like fitness in general. Like I grew up playing sports like swimming, track, soccer, um, cycling, road biking, pretty much throughout my whole life, right? And in high school, continuing in college, medical school, running a lot. And I really got into bodybuilding um probably like the last like year of medical school. I really took it more seriously. And then last year, actually, after moving to Miami, the fitness culture here is so prominent. And at my gym, Elevation Fitness in downtown Miami, we had multiple they call it like posing seminars, right? So they would have, coaches and athletes have been preparing for bodybuilding shows, and who are like well renowned in the field essentially, like both competing at the NPC level and then IFBB pro level. So there's different leagues, right? So the pros is like the Olympia, right, which is IFBB, and NPC is like where you make your name and you qualify for Olympia essentially. So people from all stages, I went and I was interested, and I actually met my coach there, and Dr. Sorry, not doctor, my bad. She is like a doctor, honestly. Doctor of fitness. Um, Her name is Brittany Watts. She's an amazing coach. Just she's been competing on like the Olympia stage, and it's been on for several years. Won the Arnold competition as well, the Arnold Expo. Um, so she's a pro level athlete, and so she's my coach, and she really helped train me and educate me on the things regarding to fitness, because we learned so much in med school about the biochemistry, but there's like a disconnect. There's not really good concrete training of like, hey, this is nutrition and this is how you know this what you eat affects your training. And from an exercise physiology standpoint, we don't really receive that background too much. So it's really interesting to kind of make those connections, and then using my physiatry background with and like leveraging that info in the gym was I went to another level with my training essentially. Like, when you
Nice.
really understand and you can visualize the muscles and the biomechanics, like, oh, yeah, the long head of the biceps cross, both joints. So, it's better to train, biceps in this maneuver versus just in the shortened or long, lengthened, eccentric versus concentric, and like timing of your nutrition around your workout. There was like so much that I learned from this whole experience. And I could like talk about it for like hours. But essentially getting back to your question, I got interested in it. It taught me discipline and, which basically like, bled into all areas of my life. Um, they say like, don't take on too much during residency, yada yada. However, if you have a goal and you're passionate about something, it is 100% possible to achieve, good grades, good clinical skills, and have a life outside of medicine. And so it's important to balance those things. And they actually kind of help refuel you and re-energize you for your patients, for your family, for everything else. I mean, not to say that it's not difficult. I mean, it is kind of challenging, but you
Right.
really grow as a person with it in so many ways. It's not just about aesthetics, like about flexing on a stage. It's really more deep than that. And I think that's like something that I will live with forever. And I recommend everybody get into bodybuilding. It's such a confidence booster. There's so many great things that come along with it. You just kind of feel unstoppable. I can't explain it too well, but yeah, so that's kind of like my pathway. I'm in my off season right now, focusing on fellowship, focusing on, just kind of like the building phase essentially of like more muscle maturity and gaining more muscle mass essentially for the next show in the future, maybe in 2 years, maybe a year and a half. I don't know.
Right.
So yeah, so that's kind of me. Go ahead,
That's
Dr. Mix.
awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. And I do want to echo something that you said, because I think a lot of times with especially like bodybuilding and bikini competitions, the aesthetic is more so highlighted than all the effort and the hard work that goes into it. And I love, love, love that you touched on that mental resilience that you gain. So I would say I'm an avid weight trainer, bodybuilder myself as well. And I definitely think even like, with the rigors of medical school, absolutely, it has helped me at times to push through those hard times, if anything, and even give me like more energy to have to study. So I really appreciate you highlighting that. Yeah. So Dr. Mix, how about you?
Yeah, and I totally agree with that because Alexa is insane. And the discipline it took, like I saw her go through that and like the worst of the cut while she's a resident physician.
Woo.
And it's amazing. I always tell med students who are like prepping applications or interviewing for things, like if you've ran a marathon, if you've done a bodybuilding competition, an Ironman, I don't know, some sort of like fitness thing that we think, I don't know, should we just put that in our hobbies and not really talk about it? Like, if that's not just a hobby, that is an attestament to like character. Like you have discipline to train for something. Like it's amazing. So yeah, Alexa's amazing.
You're
So
amazing too.
I'm Felicia. Yes, I think similar to Alexa and I guess a lot of people, I like when I was younger, I was in a lot of different sports. I was an ice hockey player and a swimmer was like my main two sports. And then I became an adult and I was like bored, like trying to go to the gym and I didn't really know what to do. And if you know me, I'm like very competitive and I always want to like challenge people to some sort of like competition. And so, I actually didn't find CrossFit until 2 years ago. I was a med student going on to my audition rotations and I was looking for like yoga classes or like something to do when I was like visiting all these cities. And I kept hearing about CrossFit and I knew I was applying to PM&R. And I knew I wanted to do some sort of like sports medi MSK like practice. That's why I liked physiatry so much. And I kept hearing about CrossFit and this like negative rhetoric against it, like, oh, they keep me in business, oh, these injuries, whatever. But then whenever a physician or some sort of healthcare worker would say that to me, I'm like somebody that asks questions. I'm like, okay, what do you mean by that? Or like, what exercise are they doing? Or why is it so dangerous? Or have you tried it before? And like every time I tried to like ask a question, the person behind that like stigma like couldn't give me an answer. And so I was like, okay, I'll sign up and I'll try it. So I tried it in like California, some like drop-in gym. I'm like, I'll go in and try it. And I literally fell in love like the first freaking class I went to. One, they were like, everybody in the gym like learned my name and was like cheering me on, which is the coolest thing
Oh,
ever. But two, I was so intimidated because I like walked in the gym and it was all these like ripped people with their shirts off. And I'm just like, what am I doing? And they're lifting all these heavy weights. And like instantly the coach came up to me, asked me, what injuries do you have? What sports have you played in the past? What are you scared about? What exercises do you know? And then they like scaled everything. So everybody gets one workout, but then the workout is like scaled or changed depending on your ability. And it was so cool to me to like be in the gym doing the exact same workout as this like intense, like super strong person. And then me being first time ever trying CrossFit, and we were doing the same workout, same time cap. I was just doing it very differently. And to me, it felt very safe because they were like scaling it to my ability. So that's kind of how I fell in love with CrossFit. I would say I don't like to identify myself as a CrossFitter because like I don't know. I ran a marathon last year and I've done half marathons. Right now I'm dabbling in the idea of like doing an Ironman. So I just like I'm an athlete. I'm like a lifetime athlete of any sport. And like Alexa said, I think I just it coincides so much with physiatry and I kind of geek out about it and I love to learn about it, especially when I'm doing certain exercises. I'm like, oh, well, actually, you're using this muscle. So if we recruit it this way or try this, and so it's super fun. And then the discipline behind it, I love the idea of setting a goal and then like sticking to it. So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I love that you highlighted that sense of community because that's something with, a lot of people going to more community style workout classes and definitely CrossFit as well, where, people like I've seen where if you're like, let's say the last person like finishing the workout, everyone else isn't just doing their own thing. Like they're standing there cheering you on, encouraging you. And I just love that big family feeling that you can have at a CrossFit box. And I think I've definitely heard that negative rhetoric about, oh, CrossFit can get injured. And I actually did injure myself in CrossFit, but I had an absolutely terrible clean form. And that was why where just the bar landed wrong and I just like injured myself a little bit. But I think if there's an educated coach as well as you as a person who's trying, you're not just like trying to go through the movement and actually be curious, like you said, ask those questions and be curious about, okay, like this movement pattern, what is the right way, what is the wrong way, then also you can like lower your risk of injury. Yeah, so kind of talking about injury now, what would you say are and this is like a little bit of a shift, like, we're switching between the world of PM&R and world of training. And I hope we can kind of like bridge the gap and talk about the similarities, but also what would you say are some of the common injuries that physiatrists in particular encounter in patients who engage in like weight training or like intense exercise routines? And how do you approach the diagnosis and treatment of them?
Yeah. So I'll go ahead and start if that's okay with you, Dr. Mix. I'm a real big evidence-based medicine type gal, obviously. So I love research too. Felicia knows this. So I did a little bit of homework before. So I looked in a little PubMed search. There's only been a few studies looking at, like for example, there was a systematic review on CrossFitters, and the injuries, the location, risk factors, incidence, and prevalence, using like online databases. And this was through August 2020. 25 studies were looked at in this one particular study, and there was a total of like 12,000 athletes included in this analysis, and the prevalence of injuries among the studies was about 35%, and ranging between 0.2 and 18.9 per 1,000 hours of training. The most injured areas were shoulder, spine, and knee injuries, and about 8% requiring surgery. So I thought that was pretty interesting. And then with regards to like bodybuilding industry injuries, I did a quick search as well. There's not really much information out there on competitive bodybuilding compared to like CrossFit. However, in um, in a systematic review looking at different retrospective studies using PubMed, Embase to look for injury epidemiology studies. Across weight training sports, bodybuilding had the lowest injury rate, which I thought which is really interesting. About like 0.12 to 0.7 injuries per year, and about 0.24 to 1 injury per 1,000 hours, compared to strongman, which is about 4.5 injuries per 1,000, so like 4 times as much. And then, yeah, the highest rates among the Highland Games. I didn't get a chance to look up what that was, but I imagine maybe that's like a UK sport. I'm not really sure. But yeah, the shoulder, lower back, knee, elbow, wrist, hand were generally the most commonly injured anatomical locations. And I can send you the links to those studies. I thought they were pretty interesting. But yeah, so that's kind of what I found.
I love that, Alexa. I love the data because I think,
Yeah.
and I love this question because it's like a very heated question, I think, among people. And like whenever I get asked it first, I always like, first of all, I step back and like I ask the person who's asking me, like, what context, are we asking the injury rates among bodybuilding or CrossFit among? Like, are we, anytime you do any athletic, anything, any sport, you're going to go out for a walk, you are putting yourself at some sort of orthopedic risk, right? You might roll your ankle, like there is something that you're going to hurt. You're going to be sore the next day, right? But what is the benefit of moving your body? Like the metabolic benefit, the musculoskeletal benefit. So if you can find some sort of movement, whatever that is, whether you're a hot yoga person, you're a spin class person, you're a CrossFitter, you're a bodybuilder, if you can find some sort of middle ground where like the benefit is outweighing the orthopedic risk, then to me that's like that, like I don't know, we don't need to be arguing about it. But because we are physiatrists, I feel like, and I do get asked this question about the injuries, and I find it very interesting because, like, for example, if I talk about what injuries I see on a day-to-day basis in my CrossFit gym, definitely most people are complaining that some people have like a shoulder problem, back, usually a low back. Usually it's low back and shoulder. Those are the number two. And I would say the third one is going to be a knee. Some people, then I'll hear about an ankle, and then sometimes wrist, because we do a lot of like handstands and like gymnastic stuff, but usually shoulder and back. But then I was thinking about it today because right now I'm on a rotation where I'm spending like half days in a general musculoskeletal clinic. And this is not a sports med clinic. This is an average lay person like coming in for musculoskeletal injuries. And I don't have data on this, but I'm guessing 99% of these people are not athletes. Right. Same injuries. They're coming in with shoulder pain, back pain, knee pain, right? So then if you're going to look at the rest of their health chart, the people at my gym don't have diabetes, don't have these other metabolic conditions that are going to put them at higher risk for heart attack or other things that are going to kill them later on and decrease their functionality versus the people who are having these same shoulder injuries, back injuries, and then have all these other comorbidities that are going to put them at more risk to not only not recover from their shoulder injury, right? Their adhesive capsulitis because their blood sugar is high versus somebody who doesn't have high blood sugar and has adhesive capsulitis. Not only not recover from these injuries, but then later on put them at higher risk from other injuries. I don't know. That's like my super heated answer that I
love
get
it
all the time.
Yeah. It's interesting because it's almost like comparing apples with oranges, right? And of course, if you've and there's the other argument that someone who lives a pretty sedentary life decides to try CrossFit, goes very crazy the first day, gets injured. Oh, CrossFit is the worst thing in the world. I mean, same thing with weight training. Oh, I tweaked my back. Oh, I did deadlifts and I hurt my back. So deadlifts suck, right? I've definitely heard that I guess that conversation or that type of explanation with like why you shouldn't try certain things. But like you said, someone who's more active, that's like the number one free way, I guess, that has been proven that you can prevent chronic comorbidities in the future, for sure. So especially you, Dr. Mix, with your experience in the clinic that you're at, so I would assume, right, that it's hard to just tell someone, and exercise prescription is a big part of the world of physiatry, someone who's not motivated or someone who is scared of injury, how do you motivate them? How do you guide them? If you've had that done for patients.
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm interested to hear what Alexa will say about this. I think it's very like patient dependent. I'm big about I am engaged to a soon to be psychiatrist, so I'm very into motivational interviewing. Like he
Love
teaches
it.
me so many techniques, and it actually like the mind and body go together so much. So we have really interesting conversations. So I've really started to develop motivational interviewing. The truth behind it is, especially as a resident physician, I don't have a lot of time with patients. But in the perfect scenario, and when I do, I like to catch a little bit of that. So, there's so much good literature about knee pain and each pound that you lose taking off about 5 pounds of force on those knees, right? So there's so much we can do about injections and surgeries and all of the therapy, but somebody losing weight is so profoundly impactful on knee pain, back pain, everything. Anyway, so I kind of start the conversation with like, do you exercise? What do you think about exercise? And I'm not out here to convince everyone to be a CrossFitter, like at all. If it's somebody that is very, very sedentary and literally doesn't do anything, I start out with that kind of motivational interviewing. And if they're really not interested in exercise, I love to do, a physician taught me this in medical school, actually. I like to do little like lifestyle changes. So I say, do you drive to your mailbox every day or do you walk to your mailbox to get your mail? Do you park in the front of the store? When you go to the grocery store, do you park in the front of the lot or the back of the lot? And then I try to pick like 1 or 2 things like that for them to just start increasing like activity. And I do the same with nutrition. But getting people to want to work out is very hard. What do you do, Alexa?
It's a challenging conversation. So like I experience this a lot in like the pain clinic, for example. So my career is gonna be an interventional pain doctor. So I'm basically gonna be trying to put a band-aid on people's, back pain essentially with interventions. So these injections, the interspinal spacers, minimally invasive ways to help them bridge the gap to eliminate pain to get them to function again. So the idea is using motivational tactics to be like, hey, like I wanted to get you back into playing golf again. I know your back is hurting. I know you herniated that disc. Losing weight's gonna help. Lifestyle modifications is gonna help. But look, this is just a band-aid. Like the goal is for you to strengthen your muscles. Like, and I just emphasize, I'm like, muscle is king, okay? Like the basics, like there's like, we could inject your back all day long, like trigger point you, we could, that's like, it's not going to be a long-term solution. The long-term solution has to come from within the patient. And I really like emphasize patient accountability and, having them take control of their health and really, kind of being a coach for them, essentially being, I emphasize like developing muscle is king, for especially low back pain, especially glutes. Nobody trains their glutes. Okay. Nobody has, I just want to let you know how important your glutes and your posterior chain is, stretching your hamstrings for that, pelvic alignment. That is a majority of people's back pain. Okay. I like cannot emphasize this enough. And I tell all my patients this. I'm like, make sure you're doing your hip bridges or like, work on that posterior chain. That's going to help you so much in your core strength. And you probably won't need all these SI joint injections, if you just work on your muscle strength, you're going to have, so much more stability and less pain. So it's really just motivational, techniques as a physician. But yeah, I wanted to get back to one point that Felicia brought up. The importance of really like so I actually was a participant of CrossFit too. I was a CrossFitter at one point. Even like volunteered at Wildapalooza. I know Felicia did as well. Which is really cool at U Miami. That was really awesome. And that's when I got inspired to do CrossFit. I actually injured my ankle outside of CrossFit playing soccer, rolled my ankle. That's another thing. But then that led me to bodybuilding because I was like, okay, well, I can't run. Let me do this. So like, but I want to emphasize the importance of, if you have a goal, a fitness goal, it's so much easier when you have accountability and you have a coach. And so by going to CrossFit, you have the accountability of the community and you have the coach, literally the coach who's teaching the class, okay? Who's guiding you on how to do the movements, etc. And so like that's like easy peasy reaching your fitness goals, okay? And I hired a coach because I know I I needed to have the toolkit available for me to teach me, how to be successful. And I want to just highlight even coaches need coaches. Mentors, your mentors
Amen.
have mentors, okay? So if you care about something so much and you really want something, I would invest in yourself and get a coach, get the expert to help you and hold you accountable. You can't do it on your own. You go farther in life with help from other people together than by yourself.
Love it.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah. I feel like
Very
I feel like
passionate
there
about
can
that.
be actually this episode will contain not only PM&R related, combos, but even life lessons. I love the importance of, coaches having coaches, the importance of accountability, because as human beings, we're wired to just take the path of least resistance, right? And it's so hard if you by yourself go to the gym, right? And let's say motivation, which I think it's very much so finite, and then that's where discipline comes in play, right? Because just motivation can take you just so far. And that's why the importance of having coaches and those community type workout classes can help you become a better version, a more disciplined version, and even just a healthier version of you. And I also think touching on patient accountability, and Dr. Mix, you mentioning, hey, how do you get to your mailbox? Is it walking? And just having those conversations with the patients, it allows them to be part of their own healthcare rather than the physician just telling them, hey, these are the things that you need to do. And in my own very short medical school rotation experiences, whenever I've seen patient being counseled like that, they're a lot more likely to listen because they feel like, hey, I'm part of the decision making as well. So I think those were some very, very important factors that you guys brought up. Are there any success stories that you'd like to share or you remember with patients?
Like among that we like something that we did with the patient.
Yeah.
It's a little difficult. Like as a PGY2, I don't have a lot of continuity with, and I guess even as like all of ours, because we switch rotations every like 7 weeks or so. I mean, I've implemented it among other people's lives that I have met along my journey, with a lot of success. But like my own dad, I implemented a lot of this stuff for him, and he's like off all blood pressure medications. He's now running every day. He's playing with the grandchildren. He's supposed to get a surgery that he doesn't have to get anymore. Like he's completely changed his life. And I have a father that I've never had before just by implementing. I think going through medical school, I was like learning all this stuff and I'm like thinking of my own family. And I think that's when like you have the opportunity to like really start to like, I don't know, share your like knowledge with family. So that's like my big success is my father, but I don't have a lot of continuity yet in residency to like really I mean, we're probably making a difference in people's lives, but we don't know it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I can only just talk about, the influence I've had on my family members as well, like my dad and like some of my my research mentors and stuff like that. I'm kind of like their accountability partner. During my fasted cardio Peloton, I'll like take a screenshot, send it to them, be like, move your body today, like let's get active. And like literally, like, I don't know, it's become like a habit now. They'll send me back, their fasted cardio and like their, or like keeping a step challenge with my Garmin watch or whatever, throughout my friends and family. But like Dr. Mick said, we don't really have our own clinics where we have continuity with the same patient. So it's hard for me to speak on that because it's kind of rare to see, because we're always rotating every 6 weeks. And so you'll be lucky if you see, you know, a patient twice in like a year essentially. But
Right.
from the effect we have on our friends or colleagues and our family, I've seen tremendous changes. And the fact that, you know, it's not just coming from, oh, like from our experience, it's actually like science. Like we're actually like doctors, like we actually like treat patients with this. So they actually come to us and they're like, wow, okay, this is what they do for a living. Literally, we should trust them. And, you know, and it's worked out. So
I actually have like this is like kind of related, kind of not, but it made me think of this. So I think Alexa and I are very passionate about also like exemplifying, kind of like what you're saying, exemplifying this at work too among our peers, and just exemplifying this. Like it's really hard. I mean, to be a resident physician and like do what Alexa did and be in a bodybuilding competition, like that's crazy. But I think we try to like really, you know, exemplify this among everybody that we work with. Something that I like about CrossFit so much, and I think one of the reasons why I fell in love with it that I didn't quite say is like the whole functional fitness part of CrossFit. So all the main movements of CrossFit are all down to basically like, I don't know if you've seen these videos on like social media, but it's like, why are you working out? And it's like somebody lifting a weight up from the ground and like putting it overhead. And then it goes to them like lifting a suitcase up and like putting the suitcase up above whatever when they're getting on a plane. Or like picking up their baby from the ground and like putting it above them, or like things like that. I've actually had 2 patients now in the last month who we've been rounding. We walked in and the patient had fallen and was on the ground. And I walked in and the patient, I would say 200 and maybe I'm going to beef myself up and say 250 pounds, maybe like 225 pounds, but over 200-pound patient on the ground. And in this situation, it's you know, it's very like scary. You don't know if they hit their head, you know, you're assessing them, but you're trying to get them off the ground. And I, by myself, went up from behind both of these patients and did like a correct form squat that I've learned in CrossFit. And I knew I wasn't going to throw my back out. I knew I could do it by myself. I didn't want to put any of my other like coworkers at risk because they were like scared to lift this patient. And I lifted the patient off the ground both times onto the bed myself. And so like, that to me was a success story of like, I use
functional medicine.
I
There you
use
go.
functional medicine, and I like, you know, I wasn't doing chest compressions on that patient, but I picked him up from off the ground by myself. So it's
Yeah.
kind of
No,
kind of
that's
fitness in motion at work.
Yeah.
there you
That's
go.
a prime way of bridging the gap between fitness and medicine right there. I love it. Thank
Yeah.
you. Wow.
Yeah.
But like Dr. Mix said, you know, I feel like, you know, even with our co-residents and among our attendings, even they kind of, I mean, we all looked at Dr. Mix and we're like, wow, she's so fit. Oh my gosh, look, she's eating sardines again. Oh my gosh, she's drinking all this water. Like, look at her discipline. She's running half marathons like every other weekend. How does she do it? You know, it's just really impressive to, you know, for you to be a physician, be waking up at the crack of dawn and like, you know, dedicate, you know, yourself to your passion to re-energize yourself for your patients and you know, learning it and making the most out of every single day. And that's like a testament, you know, and that inspires other people to also do the same. So
Right. Yeah. Be the
leading by
change you want to
example.
see in the world for sure. And you modeling those behaviors hopefully not only encourages your peers, but also your patients. I can only imagine like if I was a patient and my physician like literally lifted me up, I'd be like, okay, whoa,
Right. Whoa.
this is pretty cool. Yeah.
We do have a very fit and competitive group of residents at UMiami. Like, and I think it's probably biased, like just being in physiatry. I think a lot of us are just into that, but
Right.
it's so fun. Like, I feel like everybody has their own thing that they're doing, or competition, or sport, or like something that they're into. So it's a pretty incredible group of people.
Yeah. Sounds awesome. So we're going to shift a little bit of a gear as we're talking about I guess physiatry and training. So in what ways do you guys think the knowledge that one can gain from being involved in the like CrossFit, bodybuilding, just being very active and have an athletic background can then enhance their ability or I guess as a physiatrist, how can that help you become a better physiatrist and to especially to support and empower your patients with disabilities who are looking to be active? Because as we know, right, it's definitely transferable, some of the skills that you gain, but then again, like your patient population is in the typical healthy, athlete that you can do the same, or that you can like or I guess share the same exercises that you would do in the gym by yourself. Or correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
Go
can
ahead, Dr. Banks.
Okay.
ahead.
I think so. One of like the essence of PM&R is like we're the doctors that want to get you out doing the things that you love.
Mm-hmm.
And what I think is really helpful about like having a background of, I don't know, sport in general, some sort of athletic, is that we can appreciate that. And then when we see the patients in the clinic, and again, through kind of getting to know the patient, motivational interviews, kind of understanding, okay, you just went through something really, whether we're talking about our acute inpatients and then following up outpatient, or whoever we're talking about, whatever PM&R patient we're talking about, you just went through something in your life that is life altering. And we still want to get you back to doing what you love. So kind of like the example with the patient, like, oh, your back hurts, we want to get you back to doing golf or whatever. Whether this has to be adaptive now, like no matter what we have to do with your new impairment or your new injury to get you back to doing what you love, I want to get you back to doing what you love. And so I think that's just like the essence of PM&R. I think maybe we can like really appreciate that as an active, as we are active as well in our life. I think, I don't know if this like completely gets at your question, but something I find like unique about physiatrists that throughout medical school and throughout residency, I'm starting to realize is like, because we're so much about function, something that I've seen a lot with physiatrists is like, for example, you have a spinal, like we had a spinal cord injury patient who was a bodybuilder. Actually, it was super cool. And just to see them in outpatient and they're like, okay, I'm doing this bodybuilding competition. And so for spinal cord injury patients, depending on what level of spinal cord injury you have, you can start to understand what muscles they may be using a little bit more. So are they using their upper extremity to transfer themselves often? So do they have their extensors? What kind of function do they have? What function are they using on a daily basis just for like ADLs, for their activities of daily living? And then now this patient wants to be, or is a bodybuilder and wants to continue to be performing as a bodybuilder. And so then they're coming into our clinic and they're complaining of shoulder pain. And something I think is really unique from a physiatry perspective is this like a functional physical exam. So, you talk about like a shoulder exam, you go through all your special tests or whatever, but I love that physiatrists really, I don't know, I saw this on an audition rotation, and one of the attending physicians like put a weight in a patient's hand and they're like, show me the exercise that you're doing that you're having pain, because we were trying to reproduce it with your typical, we're doing speeds and we were doing all of the empty can or speeds, empty can, and we couldn't reproduce the pain. And it's like the patient's not lying to us, they had shoulder pain. Right. And so they like put a weight in the patient's hand and they like showed us, they're like, oh, right here, like end range of motion as I'm doing an overhead press, I feel the pain right back there. And then we're like diagnosing in like a functional exam. I've seen this too, where patients have like, let's say knee pain, and you do all of the knee physical exam maneuvers when they're on the table, they have no knee pain. But then they tell you, no, it's when I'm doing a pistol squat. And so they go on the ground, they like go into a pistol squat, they're starting to go down into it's like a one-legged squat. They're going down to one-legged squat and they're like, that's where I have the pain. And so I don't know, this is just like a very like a word vomit way to answer your question of like basically why I think this is like, why I think physiatry is such a cool specialty, and why I think our appreciation for sport outside really shows inside in like the physical exam.
Yeah. No, that was awesome. That was exactly actually what I was looking for. And that I didn't know about that functional physical exam, which makes a lot more sense. And I have seen it, if anything, in the family medicine, for my family medicine rotation, where we had a patient who came in with knee pain and we weren't able to reproduce the pain at all. So, I mean, their discharge plan was just, oh, here's some pain meds, off you go, right? Versus if now that I have this understanding and I can look it up, and I'm done with my third year, so I'm not doing any more family medicine rotation. But yeah, I feel like that would have been such a cool idea to then also the patient feels like, okay, I was actually helped rather than, oh man, this is just another time like I wasn't able to get help. So
Yeah,
thanks for
it's such
sharing
like
that.
it's such like a silly like, but it was like an aha moment I had on my audition rotations. I was
Right.
like, whoa, because I don't know, it's like I've definitely seen this before where we just like didn't believe the patient. We did all the physical exam maneuvers and they were all negative, and we're like, they don't actually have pain, but they're telling us they're like, no, like I don't know, I'm a dancer, and every time I do whatever, but
Yeah.
we like I don't practice dance, so I don't know. Or like let's say it's a CrossFitter and you don't understand the CrossFitting sport, and they're like, every time I snatch, but you do all the shoulder, maneuvers and you can't get it. You got to actually put the patient in a snatch position for them to like recreate the pain and then understand, okay, that's why that
Mhm.
hurts. And then now we can like further diagnose it. So, yeah.
Right.
Also wanted to answer part of your question in a different way as well. I didn't even think about the functional exam. That was awesome, Dr. Mix. What instantly popped in my mind was how within physiatry we consider the function and particularly the patient's interests for specifically like amputee patients who have like, you know, maybe a lower extremity injury requiring amputation, or an upper extremity amputation, um, and really working with the patient and discussing what their goals are, fitting them with a proper prosthetic, and sometimes even if they're like lucky or in the off chance that they have the ability to have, multiple different prosthetic devices for either running or even swimming. I thought that was amazing. um there, and then also like the other day actually at my gym I saw a patient with an upper extremity prosthesis, and he was doing like lat pull downs, and I was just like, wow,
Wow.
if this guy can go to the gym and do lat pull downs with a prosthesis, you can get off your couch and do it too if you have both limbs. You know what I mean? So it's just
Right.
like it's really awesome to like see these patients. And also at Wadapalooza they have in the CrossFit games they have adaptive um competition
I didn't
uh
know that. That's really
completely
cool.
separate. Yeah. And for a lot of bodybuilding shows like the Olympia and stuff, they have, adaptive bodybuilding. So I think within our field specifically, there's so much, like Dr. Mix said, echoing, hey, let's get you back to what you love, and let's figure out an adaptive way on how to get there and make you happy. And maybe it'll look a little different, but at least you'll still be able to be moving, active, and doing the sport you love.
Right. Right. That was awesome. I think that was like my favorite question of the interview because especially I can only picture like someone with a prosthetic doing, like you said, if someone with a prosthetic can do lat pulls down, you have no excuse. So you can do
Literally.
it too. That's
Yeah.
pretty really cool.
It was jacked, like jacked. I'm telling you, I was just like so impressed.
It's
Nice.
Yeah.
crazy. Go on YouTube and type in adaptive athletes CrossFit. It's
Mm-hmm.
Nuts.
so life-changing, amazing,
Yeah.
goosebumps. Like I had tears, I was crying at when I saw it at Wadapalooza.
Oh,
I was like, oh my God, these people are amazing.
yeah.
They're amazing. And how cool that we are in the specialty that like gets to
Like
learn and
unique.
practice.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Right. And we'll definitely include that in the show notes so our listeners can have access to it and it'll be super easy to just watch. So I feel like this has been such a fun episode and it definitely has been packed with lots of golden nuggets of advice for our listeners. But do you guys have any final advice that you'd like to share?
Oh my gosh. Do you
No
have any?
pressure.
Do you have? You can go, Alexa.
Okay, I'll go first. I was like, I don't want to keep going first here. So just like a pearl in general, I think like, from the medical students that are listening or residents, um, like, if you have something that you're passionate about, I, regardless of what any naysayer says, okay, it's really interesting. Like you always get like a lot of heat when you're really like dialed in on a goal and you're focused and you're like, oh, maybe you have to say no to some things like, oh, can't eat your birthday cake. I'm on prep, like, or like can't go out and drink, or like you can go out with your friends, maybe just get some, like tonic water, like I
Water.
had to do those things, you know what I mean? Just to be like social. There's different ways, or like you can still be social, you can still incorporate your passion within your life, and don't get so tunnel vision in like med school and be like, no, I can't do anything else. Like you have to remember this is your life, this is the experience you're writing on a daily basis. And yeah, it's important to prioritize school and training and everything, but it's also, you have to ground yourself with the things you love and you're passionate about, and be a human and remind yourself you're a human being. Okay, you're not a robot, you can't do everything, you're not perfect. It's all about balance, and I think that's key to happiness. um
Amen.
to success, like literally, you know don't feel guilty for, oh, I'm not studying because I'm spending an hour at the gym. Maybe you need that hour to really decompress, so you're energized and ready for the next study session, those kind of things. And I think it's important to have, these goals that you're passionate about, outside of work, whether that's like, I don't know, write a book, or I don't know, learn like how to water ski, or I don't know, do something really cool, because life is short, and these are our 20s and 30s, so live it up.
Yes.
I love it. I love it. Okay, I have a few. My first one, kind of related to what Alexa was just saying. Um, like you have to take care of yourself. So take however that looks, whether that's, meditation, going on a walk, running a marathon, you have to take care of yourself. But related to that, I am a big, big, big advocate for not being this like hypocritical doctor. You have to remember what now, as a medical student or as a resident, as a physician, like you, you, what the average person looks at you as, with this title. And so you are a walking like example of what the average person would think health is, right? Because you are a physician, and especially going into physiatry. And whether you love, I don't care what sport, or whether, like I said, whether it's walking or swimming or biking or whatever, make sure to take care of yourself, because remember your patients, whether you're talking about it or not, you are exemplifying health, right? So if you're coming to work and you're upset and you're tired and you're exhausted, and you've got to take care of yourself, because you are that example of health to them, whether you're like trying to be it or not. And I know that's really, really hard. And I'm constantly working at it, and we all are. But and then lastly, my my big message I want to put out there is, as medical students, as physicians, for us not to be critical of any activity or any sport, and instead be like grateful that people are moving their body, and instead be there for our patients, respect their sport, whatever they do, whether it's bodybuilding, whether it's CrossFit, respect their sport, learn more about their sport. And if they come to you with an injury from their sport, maybe before telling them not to do their sport, come from that side of like respect that they're out there moving their body, learning about it, and seeing how you can best fit into their like health journey and healing journey from that injury. So
Yeah. Wow. I have goosebumps, y'all. Yes, yes, yes. 1,000 times yes, because movement is medicine. And I think that's one of the big message that you were conveying, whether that's going for a run, CrossFit, whatever format it is, especially, I mean, the US has one of the highest like sedentary population. So if your patient's moving their body, like you said, be grateful that they're doing it. And of course, taking care of yourself. Because I feel like as medical student, I'm in my dedicated period, and it's so easy to be like, you know what, I'm just going to do one more block, because if I don't, then I'm going to, let that imposter syndrome to kick in. But we're human being, and we're not just meant to sit and study the whole time, and you got to be able to enjoy your life, right? So you don't burn out, and you can be a happy, content physician like you two, who is a role model to their patients, and can inspire your peers and your patients, which I hope that's what all of us as, aspiring physicians or physicians looking forward to. Um, so thank you so much, guys. This was an amazing episode. I hope that our listeners learned just as much as I did. And thank you to our listeners for listening to this episode. If you have a few seconds, please leave a review on our Spotify or Apple Podcast page and let us know what you'd like to learn about in the future. And until next time.